And then I want to give a little bit of context. So every week at Tuesday at 10 a.m. in the morning, Pacific time, a handful of people from around the world, from New Zealand, from Toronto, from Amsterdam, from India, uh, all come together and we try to discuss things that might be broken with OpenLibrary or just opportunities to make it even better for patrons. And during these calls, we get to showcase the ideas that we have, the features that we're working on, and broadly get to collaborate. So I'm going to, we're going to do a slightly different call today, usually, and I'm going to share my screen. Usually we have a document that looks like this, and we all sit around this document virtually, and we talk about what we've done over the course of the week, and we have open mic topics where anyone in the community can bring something up that they would like to have discussed or to get to learn more information about. And oftentimes that prepares us for yet another week. And at the end of the year, at the end of the year, we get to do a big celebration, and we try to do it very casually. And this is our time to just consolidate all of our wins, all of our victories, and talk a little bit about what we've achieved. So without further ado, I would love to bring you into 2021 OpenLibrary Community Celebration. So for those of you who may be new to the OpenLibrary or the Internet Archive, openlibrary.org is an online book catalog website, which is run by the nonprofit Internet Archive. The Internet Archive runs a variety of different services. Probably the most popular one is the Wayback Machine, which allows you to go back in time and see websites as they were captured 20 plus years ago. We also archive television news, software, music, and we run a lending library. So here's an example of the Wayback Machine, taking a look back to the year 1998, when Google had just launched its beta out of Stanford University. And you can see in the corner Stanford search here, which I find very endearing. So as I mentioned, the Internet Archive is a library, and we're located in San Francisco, California. And when there isn't a pandemic, you can often stop by for invite Friday lunches and a tour. And also when we're not in a pandemic, we have around 50,000 books that are digitized from our catalog every year and made available to patrons through controlled digital lending. And the way that works is we have this little vacuum, these bots around the internet that take all of this library metadata, these card catalogs, and they build a huge index or a catalog of them. And that's what we call open libraries, this card catalog for books. And this card catalog is used to help the Internet Archive determine, in part, which books are significant to acquire and digitize for the collection, based on the needs of our patrons in our community. And then secure practices like controlled digital lending are used to make these books available one at a time for a certain period of time, which many of you have likely done either from the archive.org website or discovered through the Open Library catalog. We then partner with library partners around the country to help diversify our collections so that we're better representing the needs of our individual communities. And finally, and last but not least, we showcase these books on OpenLibrary. There are 32 million book pages on OpenLibrary that you can learn information about books. You can find areas online where you might be able to borrow a copy. You can learn about the authors, see other special collections where this book might be featured, etc. It's also wiki editable, which means many of the people on this call have participated in improving the quality of the catalog for everyone. And it's open source, meaning software engineers who really feel passionate about the project can help contribute toward the look and feel and experience on the OpenLibrary website. If you were with us last year, we had a killer year. We had a K through 12 library that we were able to launch, which was really helpful for schools that were unfortunately having to close their doors for a big portion of the year. We also released highlightable text within our book reader, so you could click and select regions within public domain or unrestricted books. We had a complete redesign of our book pages. So we used to have a separate experience for works and editions. A work is a grouping of editions. So like artificial intelligence, a modern approach would have had a different page for the third edition, and then also for all of the editions. And so we kind of shuffled that like a card of decks into a single experience. We developed an internal librarian merge user experience, which allows people within our community librarians to click on books that are the same, and then to go through a process of combining them, so that when you search for a book on OpenLibrary, you're seeing only correct and accurate information in the catalog. And we had a handful of other victories, like the Library Explorer that Drini helped bring to life. And then also a way to import your books from Goodreads, and finally some eating our vegetables in terms of making sure our software and provisioning mechanisms were up to date. So Docker and Python 3 are new technologies which just allow us to do a good job of making the website as reliable as possible. But to talk about this year, 2021, I would love to hand it over to Lisa, who is our lead librarian for the OpenLibrary project.
You can already go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa. I've been lead community librarian since 2019. Like many of my fellow librarians, I first got involved with OpenLibrary as a patron. As I noticed gaps in metadata and other errors, I started making corrections here and there. And in doing so, I noticed opportunities for a better librarian experience and became involved on a more regular basis by suggesting ways to improve the editing workflow, for example. In the past 2 years, our librarian volunteer community has grown from a few individuals to a community of over 150 contributors. My personal contributions include merging duplicates and resolving issues of conflation, which can be confusing to patrons new to the site. My approach is to focus on a particular author at a time and make sure there are no duplicate or conflated works, and that all the works under their profiles are correctly attributed. I want to thank Brat for helping to improve this process by providing several co-op scripts. As the librarian lead, I also guide other volunteers by creating and updating documentation, answering questions, performing requested merges, and deletion of non-book items. I want to thank Jim Man and Ray for helping identify easy wins there. As a team, librarians have removed over 72,000 duplicate works from search results. So 72,000 things you are not seeing that you should not be seeing. Librarians Jenner, GLBW, Daniel, Mark, Ray, and Travis have been promoted to open librarian status, meaning they can perform some of trickier tasks such as merging authors and works. Daniel also has contributed a Spanish translation of the site. And we now have 32 special collections and counting. Travis, for example, has sorted out all of our Star Wars, Goosebumps, and Fear Street books and put them into their respective collections. No small achievement, as you'll see if you take a look at Star Wars, for example. And in each of these,
it is comical how many books are in this collection. It goes on forever.
It's like a series of series. Just it took months and months to do this. So thanks, Travis. One initiative I started this year to make our volunteers more aware of OpenLibrary's collections feature was to create a monthly collections based on that month's observances. The idea was to create a seasonal display similar to what you'd see in a physical library. By recruiting help from our team of volunteers, we ended up with some brilliant collections such as those you see here. And I want to thank Blues Velvet, Renegade 159, Bavia, James Tybalt, X Marvy 1, Sabrine, and next slide, please. Virginia Ravanelli, who created 11 collections on her own. Next slide, please. And also Jenner, our new collections lead, who created a collection for LGBT History Month and ultimately an entire LGBT collection page. He's going to tell you more about that in just a moment. And I want to take a moment to thank our entire librarian team. Some names you see here are those who have made regular contributions over this past year. If you'd like to join our volunteer community on Slack, please request an invitation via our volunteer page or send a request to lisa.s@archive.org. Thanks, everyone.
I would love to open it up to give a huge round of applause to Lisa, who has really been a tour de force for the whole open library community for years and years. She started as a volunteer, as she mentioned, and has just helped so many people find success and make meaningful contributions to open library. And I think you can probably tell that some people they report to a job, and that's like there's like a handshake that's happening there. And I think a lot of people report to the open library community for the community. There are often times that people will show up to a call and say, I didn't do anything this week. I have nothing to contribute. I just want to be around my book people. And especially being stuck inside by ourselves through this whole COVID ordeal, I think it's really important to have mission aligned people that you can be with. And I think Lisa is a big part of why we have that type of community. And she and Jenner have done an incredible job leading the Open Librarians channel on Slack. So I stopped sharing for just a moment because I'm going to switch the share mode to optimize for video, and then we're going to play a video from Jenner, who is our lead community librarian.
Hey, everybody.
Can everyone hear that okay? The hey, everybody?
I can hear it.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jenner. I live in Eastern Oregon, and I've been a volunteer librarian for about a year and creating collections since February. I found Open Library because I'm a disabled veteran and my health issues prevent me from working while I'm in treatment. So I got interested in reading history and was looking for a project that could do some good. I've really enjoyed my time so far. Everybody's been super kind, helpful, and patient. I have a really specific ultimate goal, which is to clean up every LGBTQ related record in the library and build collections for patrons who are browsing on related subjects. So I started with the awards because the Stonewalls have been awarded since 1971 and the Lambdas since 1989, and that's over 1,000 winners and finalists right out of the gate. There are 34 carousels in the main collection, which is organized by subject and the kind of work. I know Ray's going to talk about tools next. I just want to say that I don't add a work into a collection until I've tidied the work record. So I merge duplicate authors, merge duplicate works, and then I add missing cover images, descriptions, subjects, the book's language, and its physical info. If a work is a Stonewall winner, I add it to my Stonewall collection, and then I add the correct subject tag to the work, so it'll show up in a carousel in my main collection automatically. So this is the main LGBTQ collection page, and this is a list of the other award collections that I'm working on creating. And then this, so anybody can add a subject to a work. So every subject here goes to a carousel on the page. If a librarian or a patron edits an LGBTQ board book record, for example, they can add the subject while they're in the record, and then within like 15 minutes it'll show up automatically in this carousel, and they don't have to know anything or do an extra step to contribute to a collection. So I also have been creating this collection with an eye towards people who are browsing. So think about a patron who's in the mood for some kind of mystery. They can look here, but this is, this is all of the letters LGBTQ. So maybe they just want lesbian mysteries. Well, the Lambda Literary Awards have been breaking stuff out that specific for 30 years. So in this case, if you go down to lesbian mystery, you've got 30 years of books to choose from. And look at that. Look at how many of those are checked out. I am completely convinced that collections are a fantastic way of onboarding new patrons, folks who don't know anything about the Open Library at all. I've gotten a lot of pushback in person about whether we're even legal. And one thing I've noticed about the not so legal sites is they look and feel auto generated. But collections here never feel that way to me. They feel very human and hand curated, so they feel trustworthy, like your librarian arranging physical books on a staff picks shelf. So I just want to show this. Let's say I'm a new patron interested in gay history. Well, if this is my search results, I just land here, don't even have an account yet. When you start scrolling, like these two are duplicate works that aren't even about gay history. They're just written by Peter Gay. And then you've got a lot of works that don't have covers yet, and and then quickly it just becomes totally irrelevant. So compare this to giving somebody a direct link to the LGBTQ history carousel on the main collection page. They land here, yeah, they might not all be in the library, but a lot of them are, and you're only engaging with clean records. And once a patron um, makes an account, borrows a book, and gets a sense of how things work, they can feel more confident in searching. So this just gets them in the door and gets them into the system. And also, if they're on this page and they're looking at history, oh, hey, what's the oh, hey. And also, if they're on this page and they're looking at history, oh, hey, what's this? Oh, man. And then they're clicking something completely different and they're off and running. In the end, my goal is making books available. So locally, I live in rural Eastern Oregon. It's extremely conservative. We have about a 50% vaccination rate. That's not going to go up. Uh, we have a real access and safety problem. Our high schools will not stock these books. We've had challenges to ban them or make them adults only in the public libraries. And we had a guy in the next county over defacing and then stealing books to save the children. So making these books borrowable privately on your own device can literally be a lifesaver. I do know a lady who said I could tell you this. Uh, she's a local public figure who's in the closet and happily reading her way through the lesbian romance carousel. So that's really why I'm doing this work. All the rest of the stuff, the merges, the documentation, the GitHub issues, that's all fine, but I'm here to collect and tidy books so patrons can find and read them. And I am super, super, super grateful that Open Library exists. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenner. Super meaningful. Let me change the modes again. Really quickly, I do want to show on Open Library, if you click on the More button, and then, oh, actually, I think it's under Browse, sorry. Under Browse, if you go to Collections, you'll see a full list of the collections that have been contributed by different people in the community. So this is a great resource, and these are all handcrafted by librarians.
You should switch out of video mode.
I think our next talk may also be a video, though. I think that's going to be Ray. So I'm going to keep it in video mode just for now. Sorry if it was a little bit pixelated. Okay. Next, we're going to have Ray Berger talk to us about upgrading the card catalog and the tools which help librarians maintain it.
Hi, my name is Ray Berger, and I'm going to talk about some work I've done in the Open Library community around librarian tools, bestsellers, and onboarding. So a little about me. I'm a software engineer at the New York Times. My hobbies or interests include things like scuba diving, hiking, reading, open source software, and social enterprises. This is a picture of me, the end of a recent hike. So librarian tools, there are kind of two things I did this year. One is author identifiers, and one is like a similar works detector. So author identifiers, pretty simple. Made the interface to be able to add things like the Wikidata ID or the ISNI, things that make it easy to make sure we're talking about a specific person, because many times authors have similar or the same names. Another thing is when you go to a page and you see a lot of duplicate works, and right now you can manually report them, but for the librarians, it's a lot of work to merge them once they're reported. So I made a tool where you can enter any author ID and get suggestions of which books to merge, which works based on how similar their titles are. And I think this has been a big help for librarians, and I really enjoyed collaborating with Jenner and others to make it into something that's useful. Another thing I worked on is the New York Times bestseller bot, which had previously existed, but I rewrote it to work, and we added over 15,000 bestseller tags, 20,000 review links and tags, and we have ongoing import of all new bestsellers. I also really enjoyed doing the onboarding project where I helped mentor Sabrine and get this OpenLibrary modal going and pop up so that people that come to the site for the first time have a better idea of what the offerings are. Yeah, and Sabrine will talk more about that. Here are relevant links that you can click on at your own leisure for the things I've talked about. And in conclusion, OpenLibrary, fantastic group of people, lots of collaboration, working with folks, and I encourage you to join the community call, especially if you're interested in design or building out front-end things, or just sharing what you know about books and like helping move the project forward. That's everything. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the talks. Hi, my name is Ray Berg.
All right. Thank you, Ray, so much. The librarian tool that that Ray showed there really has made a big difference, because Brenton, you can probably attest that a few years ago when we would do a search on OpenLibrary, all of the results felt like they were duplicates, and we had edition after edition that was showing up. And because of these cleanup tools, we've been able to clean up tens of works at a time in one sitting. And of course, so many people have made improvements that have made that possible, like Bharat with his delete works API that I know Juni was also involved in, has just made a huge impact. All right, so I would love to hand over next to Sabrine, but before we do that, I just want to talk really briefly.
Hi, my name is Ray Berger.
Sorry. I want to talk really briefly about the Internet Archive OpenLibrary Fellowship. So for those who have been in the community for a while, you're probably aware that each year the OpenLibrary project applies to work with the Google Summer of Code program. And it's kind of like AmeriCorps, where so AmeriCorps behaves as this nonprofit that, as you know, a government fixture, gives money to interns to work on different nonprofit projects around the world. Google Summer of Code is kind of like that, but Google sponsors students to work on open source or nonprofit projects. And we've been lucky to participate, I think, three out of the 4 years that we applied. In the 1 year that we were not able to get enough seats for the Google Summer of Code program, Brewster was nice enough to run an internal Internet Archive Summer of Code internship. That was for Tabish, who helped us with one of our programs. The most heart-wrenching thing for me is when we have 5 extremely talented, qualified individuals who all deserve the opportunity, and we know there's only one Google Summer of Code seat. And this year, we really tried something new. we designed this thing called the Open Library Fellowship, where the student gets to choose exactly what type of commitment they would like to make. They choose the duration of the project, and we on staff commit ourselves during that period to help them be successful at a high impact project that they can lead and guide to completion. And so a lot of times when someone takes a summer internship, maybe they work on a side tool, which is kind of under the hood. In this case, Sabrine, for instance, worked on something that ended up being seen tens to hundreds of thousands of times directly on our homepage and is really making a big difference for people. This year, we had 5 different participants in this new Open Library Fellowship: Nolan, Yash, Sabrine, Robin, and Brian, some of them who we are going to hear from today. And if this sounds interesting to you, if you are either a student or someone who feels like you would appreciate working with a mentor on making a really high impact, concentrated contribution to the open library that is flexible and meets your constraints, then we would love to find a way to make you successful and really appreciate your contributions. On that note, Sabrine, can I hand it over to you to talk about your journey with the Open Library Fellowship?
Yes, thanks, Nick. Well, hey everyone, I am Sabrine. I'm an Open Library Fellow, and I joined Open Library in the month of November 2020. Actually, I love contributing to open source projects. So while I was looking for open source projects, I found Open Library. I thought it is very interesting, so I joined the community channels and then I attended the community calls too. I enjoyed the community calls so much that I used to join it every week. So eventually I got some issues and I worked on them and solved them. So some of my major contributions include, I worked on the accessibility project, which was led by Brian with other contributors. And one most thing that I loved the most doing is the monthly reads pages graphics. I created graphics for those pages and I loved them. And I also, this summer, I get this amazing opportunity to work as an Open Library Fellow under the mentorship of Meg and Ray. And my project was Open Library Onboarding Project. Yeah, onboarding. So of course, by this word, you all have understood that what does it do. Actually, it is for the first time patrons who visit the site. Often we get confused when we visit on the first page. So what does the site do? We don't know that. So we implemented this project for those people to give overview, what does Open Library do? So can we move to the previous slide? Yeah. Yeah. So why we did it? So why we implemented it? Of course, it was my own experience. I got confused. I didn't know what the want to read button do, and I didn't know about the list features too. And there were also some other reasons, like we were Mac also received some feedback from people as well. So can we move on the next slide? Yeah. So you can see while we were implementing, we thought of something like it should be contextual, easy to understand. So we thought of implementing a carousel. So as you can see, we have implemented a carousel on the home page, which is the most common page on which the patrons visit for the first time. So you can see we have cards, different cards, which redirects people to a different page, an FAQs page, which will tell you what to do, like how you can add books to your reading log, how you can borrow a book. What does the virtual library explorer do? Actually, it's a new feature, so many people don't know about it. So we have added a card. So directly you can see over here, yeah, try the virtual library explorer and you can go there. And one of the most important thing, it's for Lisa, yeah, for the librarians, how you can become a librarian. There are clear-cut instructions given there. And we are very happy with the impact also. About 60% of the visitors said that it has helped them. And the bounce rate has also reduced. So bounce rate is what? It is that when a person visits a website and he doesn't go to this other pages and he just leaves the website. So if he doesn't know what to do with the website, he will of course leave it. So we are telling them, we thought this might be a reason. Yeah, of course, the bounce rate has reduced. Yeah, can we move on the next slide? Okay, so what are the next steps? So we are thinking of implementing some doodles to make the cards more and more attractive and eye-catchy. And we will also implement pop-up tutorials. We have one for the feed, I think, track your readings. And what the instead of redirecting to a different FAQs page, we will have eye-catchy, attractive GIFs, which will tell patrons what they can do. And the next thing is ability to hide. If you already know what we are doing, you will think that, yeah, I don't want that thing on the page. So you can just close it down. And yeah, if you want to contribute, you can join the communications channel, contact me, Mac and Ray. And thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Sabrine, amazing job. And just to show folks how impactful this feature is, if a patron lands on the page and then they have to scroll all the way to send feedback, but if we do go to send feedback, then we can see that already 54 people have taken the time to leave feedback about their experience, saying whether they're new patrons or not. And overwhelmingly, they've been telling us that there are features they didn't know about and that this feature helped them. So for an internship, being able to design something that not only has hundreds of thousands of people engaging with it, but being able to author a blog post to showcase Sabrine's accomplishments, and also to see this type of reception was really rewarding for us. So thank you, Sabrine. Nick, may I hand it off to you to talk about communications for 2021?
Sure. Hey, y'all. Hey, everybody. My name's Nick. I've been helping out as a communications lead, and this is a little bit about our journey as communications. And so I'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining, by the way, everybody. So how it really all got started, excuse me, is my love for mythological creatures like werewolves, and especially this time of the year. So I got to looking for books, one in particular on the lunation cycle, and I found that book. And that, of course, led me to learn more about OpenLibrary. I mean, them having a book that I couldn't find anywhere else is what led me to the hackathon and OpenLibrary hackathon, where I participated by really just cheering on and participating by supporting developers and librarians in my first hackathon at OpenLibrary. And that ultimately led me to just making a commitment to participate as a volunteer with OpenLibrary. And Nick and I had a few different conversations, and he helped guide me to my sweet spot, which is in communications. And so I'll sort of walk you all through now some of the things that we've been working on. And I think, yeah, that'll be the next step, best step. So we've a year of building and learning. And the biggest question is, how do you build or begin to build a communications program in an open source environment, and not just in an open source environment, but in such a way that preserves the core library characteristics that book lovers expect or anticipate to see in their favorite or local libraries? How do you do that? A lot of testing, exploration, and launch testing of different projects, and paying very close attention to how a diverse group of volunteers contribute cross-culturally. How do they respond to different platforms, different projects? All of that information we've been really just working on this past year. So just a snapshot of things that we've done. We created 7 podcast episodes for OpenLibrary to really feature what the work is, to feature the work of contributors behind the scene at OpenLibrary, as well as authors. We now have an understanding of how a wide range of volunteers can participate and help develop a single podcast. We launched a Discord chat as a creative alternative for volunteers to collaborate. One thing we noticed is volunteers, we were getting a large number of Gen Zers. And when you go beyond the United States, you see that a lot of people don't use Slack or aren't familiar with it. Discord is very popular. So we moved to that channel. We created the communications team, we created an onboarding and writing process to bring in volunteers, understand their tone for writing, and also understand how different blogs and content that we write can be used as potential content partnerships for people beyond OpenLibrary to help maximize our reach and engage other folks who may want to collaborate on a global scale. We determined best approaches for video collaboration, having a series of Zoom calls, meet and greets, strategy and idea sessions about things that we're working on in communications gave us an understanding of how people respond over different time zones, which is hugely important, from India to the UK to Canada to France, Nigeria, US. All these different countries respond differently to time zones. So that's just helpful information as we move forward to 2022. We actually translated our first video, a French spoken video, and gave a summary to one of the leaders at Internet Archive. So we got a chance to see how can communications take a video that's not in English and translate that and provide an accurate summary of how it's being spoken from its native language. It's pretty cool. And I also had the personal opportunity to complete the fellowship program at Internet Archive. MEC actually connected me with Wendy Hanamura. She's director of partnerships there. And I was able to participate in helping launch in the 25th anniversary campaign. That only deepened my understanding of how to really responsibly launch and create programs in a communications setting, which I think is hugely important. Then, of course, the podcast here in the slide is some links as well when you access it. But you know, Andy, Sabrine, Andy is a librarian as well. Sabrine, someone you just heard from, Mark Hyman as well, one of the developers. He'll share more here later. These are guests who came on the OpenLibrary community podcast, right? So all of that feedback, and so you can, you know, get the link whether or not you want to get it on Spotify or iTunes. It's there. And finally, the focus, by the way, that if you saw the presentation last year, you know that's Ren, my cat. I'm still his parent, so that means more hassle for me. But you know, I just learned to deal with it as a cat parent. Anyway, so the focus for 2022 is furthering the pilot podcast. We find that as a great way to bring in people to that one location of the podcast and tell stories and share what other people are doing. Also, the plan is to pilot a virtual book chat where we can start talking about book themes as well. And also exploring ways that we can creatively familiarize people with controlled digital lending. I think one of the volunteers on the call, Aaron Miller, has been helping with that, just creative ways, whether it's creating magazines, just engaging content for people to really grasp the significance behind controlled digital lending, and also exploring a year's worth of building and learning. We still have all that information, all that insight. How do we start to chip away at that and still use it for forward progress and not just throw it all away and pick 2 or 3 projects that work, but we're going to use and maximize that information. And special thanks. I want to just give, thanks to MEC, the library team, the developers, the workers at OpenLibrary, the engineers, the teams, and the people at Internet Archive have given me a playground to do what I love. And I think that shows you the power and the of just acceptance at Open Library as a people and trust. I'm really appreciate that. So I feel absolutely honored to be here.
We love you, Nick. We're so incredibly grateful for your contributions in leading the communications team. All right. And next up, Brian was unable to be here today because he is presently working with the Library of Congress. But Brian is an accessibility expert who decided for his master's program to use OpenLibrary as his playpen. And during Brian's time as an OpenLibrary fellow, Brian completely revitalized the website in terms of its usability for traditionally underserved communities. We went from something like a 60 or 70% compliant website to well over 90%. And unfortunately, he hasn't been around for the past 2 months because of work. And so we went from our 99% to 91, and that's on me, that's my fault. But now we have the right reporting and testing in place to know how to bring it back up. And this spans fixing menus that they're accessible, so that the tab order for blind or dyslexic patrons is usable, so that the right color contrasts are available. And this was only possible because Yash, Sabrine, Arun, and several other people helped solve over 28 mission critical issues. This is not a project, speaking from personal experience, that I would have been able to just come along and do. Brian just has a tremendous amount of experience, and not only was he generous in contributing this experience to the community, but he was a mentor and an advocate, and was generous with his time helping other people in the community be successful. And the documentation that he wrote was intense and thorough and comprehensive. And there's 5 documents that look just like this with breakdowns. And for that reason, it is my privilege to give him my personal 2021 Hero Award for just contributing a level of expertise that was so essential for our patrons. The amount of value that it's generating for the people who need it makes me feel extremely grateful. So even though Brian is I don't think on the call right now, I would love it if folks can just give him a round of applause to celebrate all of the work that he's done. So thank you, Brian. And next, I think I'm gonna hand it over to you, Jim, to talk about new experiences on OpenLibrary.
All right, thanks, Mick. Okay, so my name is Jim, and as Mick said, I'll be talking about some new experiences that I've worked on in OpenLibrary throughout the year. So I began volunteering with OpenLibrary in August 2020. Over time, I filled the role of front-end lead, which means I helped contributors with any PRs and issues that related to the front end of the website, basically what people see when they visit the website. And in July 2021, I joined the OpenLibrary staff.
Also, to embarrass Jim, I put a graphic on that last slide, which just shows these are Jim's contributions compared to me and everyone else in the community for the month of September. And Jim likes to say, like, "Oh, I'm not sure how productive I'm being." He's very modest, and I think you'll see that shine through in his talk. But we've been absolutely delighted and grateful to work with Jim, and you'll see why.
Thanks, Mick. I may never feel productive enough. But anyway, so our new experiences, we created a means to let the community leave reviews for books, and those reviews are will be used by the whole community to better understand like what people think of a book. Let me demonstrate that.
Before we do, how does this compare to Amazon reviews?
Oh, sure. So when folks hear reviews, they may expect to leave like a free form review, maybe a few paragraphs, what they think about a book. That type of thing would be pretty difficult for us to moderate. So our solution, we created a number of predefined tags that can be assigned to a work.
Is there an advantage to doing it that way beyond the convenience?
Sure. So the hope is that over time, we can use these tags to aid with search results. So maybe you're looking for a book where maybe 75% of people that review the book said the book was, I don't know, scary or something like this. You can search for books like that. And to see this in action, you would go to a books page, click on the reviews tab, and it brings you to this community reviews component, which gives a breakdown of all the tags that were left for the book.
And what does the 3 mean here?
Okay, so this means that three patrons have left reviews for Neuromancer, and then in each category you'll see a small number next to it that Pace has 1. That means that 1 person left a Pace review. Length has 2. That means 2 people left a review. They thought that this was a medium-based book.
So one of the reasons that I love this feature as opposed to traditional reviews is that by setting options with limits, the result is the entire community is working together to review a book in a useful way where the most salient and important data becomes surfaced. So you can truly know that this is the best book in the world on, the best scary book because there's 2,000 people who have all confirmed that it's scary. And one doesn't quite get the same level of focus in Amazon reviews where someone might say, 3 stars, this book shipped very slowly. Do you want to show us how to leave a review on the website?
Sure. So currently there's 2 ways. You can click this add your community review. This will bring up a modal. Let me see if I remember. This one has adult themes. And after a refresh, that will reflect in this component.
What about for people who do want to leave long form reviews?
Okay, so if you're the type of person that wants to use your own words to review a book, you can leave a note for a book. Now the thing about this is it's private, so it will only be viewed by you. I typically use the notes to mark books that may have data issues, things like this. People can use it to say where they found out about a book, just their personal notes about a book. And as we were working on these 2 features, we realized that it's a little bit difficult to find all the notes and reviews that you left. You'd have to navigate to a book page where you left a review. To solve that, we updated, it's taking a while to load, the My Books page. So this has all of your notes, all of your reviews. It's running a little bit slowly here. You can see all of your reading logs, all of your list, and your loan status, like check the books, wait list. You can see that all from here. Let's see. Big thanks to John Robson, who was a previous front-end lead, and he really helped us a great deal in building a component library, which we can reuse like front-end components like buttons and things like this.
I don't know if anyone has had this problem before of trying to develop documentation for how a system works and then a week later, all of the documentation is out of date because everything changed and people are working on it. For the Open Library project, for a long time, the way that we would document the components on our website, such as this is a button or this is a list, is we would have patrons in the community take a screenshot of the component and add it to the document. And as soon as someone changed the design, all of our documentation would be out of date. And so one thing that John had worked on and that Jim took over the finish line is this new interactive environment. It's a live environment called Storybook, which shows you all of our components directly loaded from the website. So if it's showing up on the website, then it's also showing up correctly on Storybook. And that's what you're seeing right now. And so Jim and John's work has really pushed us in the next direction of being able to support our front end contributors and knowing how components work in a maintainable way.
Yeah, thanks. And if you'd like to help, so we're busy documenting all of our legacy components and our new view components in Storybook. Right now, we only have the buttons, so there's plenty of work to be done here. We could also use some help with the loans page, which is looking a little bit like a wasteland when you don't have anything checked out. It might be nice to have a carousel that has recommended books or just something a little bit more pleasing to our patrons. If you want to help with either of these things or anything else, please email me at jchamp@archive.org. Thanks so much.
Woohoo! Thanks, Jim. And do you know approximately how many community reviews have been left so far?
I think there's been over 3,000 tags left by around 200 people.
Awesome. So at the beginning of this year, I had made up a number, which I don't think I told to anyone in the community, but for our beginning of the year board reports, I said, it would be awesome if we found some way to get 1,000 different reviews. And if we got 3,000, then that's incredible. It reminds me of when Lisa, I think we were shooting for 1,000 works merged. And then at the end of the year, I think you had 12,000 or something. And we had to completely rethink our numbers. Jim, congratulations on your work. We're so lucky to be working with you. And Mark, would you like me to share my screen, or would you like to take over screen share?
You can go ahead. I'll cue you when to change.
All right. And for the video, I think I'm going to stop the talk and then change it to the video mode.
Don't do that. Whenever you change it, even for the videos, it looks bad.
Okay.
I think it's because they're not actual videos. They're screen captures. So
Got
just
it.
leave it in regular mode.
That I will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'm not a typical ebook adopter because I love physical books, and I love the design of book pages. I love the look of type on page, and so I'm very frustrated looking at a lot of ebooks that look like badly formatted Word documents. So what I do love is reading the books that OpenLibrary provides, because they're scanned pages that are the original pages of the books. And I read a lot of ebooks now, mainly because I've got 5,000 books in my house and there's not room for any more. And also because a lot of the books that I like to read are not things that I can find in bookstores, lots of old books. So I've been using Internet Archive for a while and stumbled into OpenLibrary. But for me, the experience, again, is really about reading. It's about being able to curl up on a couch with a book. And so go to the next slide. Like I said, I've used Internet Archive for years, and then I stumbled into OpenLibrary a while back and saw this was another place that would help me to manage the books that I've been reading in Internet Archive. So I joined the volunteer librarian team to learn kind of how the community worked and how the catalog worked inside. And Lisa was great to work with, and all the other librarians. And after I kind of gotten my sense of what OpenLibrary was about and how it worked and who the people were, I said, okay, I think maybe now I'm ready to try to solve some problems that I was experiencing reading the books on my couch with my iPad. And so rather than give you a demo, I recorded a little video for promotional purposes that can pack this all into 2 minutes. So let's watch the video, and then I'll talk a little more.
Hi, I'm Mark, developer of the OpenLibrary Reader. OpenLibrary is an amazing catalog of millions of books, many of them available to read right in your web browser. I'm always in the middle of a book, often a vintage mystery, but reading in a browser isn't the best experience, with interface distractions, scrolling fatigue, browser crashes, and so on. In search of the ideal reading experience, I created the free OpenLibrary Reader. As soon as you log in, the reader has all the books you've saved in your OpenLibrary reading log. You can see them all at a glance and sort with a tap to find what you're looking for. Open a book with a tap and you have the familiar OpenLibrary reading experience, but with a twist. A single touch hides all the distractions and expands the book to completely fill your screen, creating a distraction-free reading experience. A natural swiping gesture allows you to turn pages from anywhere on the screen. With OpenLibrary's beautiful scanned page images, it's the closest you can get to holding a real book. Returning to your shelves, you can see at a glance how much time you have on your book loans and which titles may be in use by someone else right now. Tap a book menu and you can move books from shelf to shelf, learn more about a book, or find similar books in the OpenLibrary collection. OpenLibrary Reader also has a simple search function. Type an author's name or title keyword and browse all the readable books that match. Tap to learn more, and tap again to add a book to your shelf. OpenLibrary Reader doesn't replace all the powerful searching, browsing, and collaborating features of the OpenLibrary website, but for reading a favorite book on the couch, it's hard to beat. Search for OpenLibrary Reader in the iOS or Android app stores. If you love it, leave a review or tell a friend. Happy reading.
Next slide. So that guy says it better than I could. It's been a great ride. I spent 6 months or so working on the app and trying to get it just right so that I was happy with it, because that's what matters. I'm the one who's reading with it every day. But we released it about a month ago, and it's currently been picked up by about 575 folks who I hope are using it. My goal is really just to have it out there as a resource for folks using OpenLibrary to give them what I hope is the best reading experience. And the way that you can help is to use the app and let me know if there are things that you think could be better. And once you've downloaded it, review it, rate it in the app stores. It's a weird thing, but unless people actually rate and review stuff, it doesn't actually show up very high in search results. So right now it's hard for people to find the app because not many people have reviewed it. So that would really help get it out there to folks. That's what I care about. There's no ads, there's no cost. It's not making any money for me. It's all about the books and the reading. So that's what I've got.
Thanks, Mark. Incredible.
No, Brandon, that was not my own music. That was stock music, but thank you.
That was you talking though, right?
That was me talking.
Yeah, I love the quality of your voice.
Thank you.
I love it. There are so many things that I think the OpenLibrary website can learn from the user experience decisions that you made, Mark, including showing the time left on the loans, which I know Brenton and the product team have done a really good job of doing on the archive.org side, but we're still playing catch up. Next, I would love to hand over to Yash and Andrini. Although I'm hoping Yash will also introduce himself on the call, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello everyone, I'm Yash and I'm an Open Library Fellow and I worked with Greeny on the PWA app.
Cool. And Drini has been asked to present this one, so I will leave it to Drini.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Drini. I was lucky enough to mentor Yash for this project about adding a PWA of Open Library. So if you haven't heard what a progressive web app is, and if you don't follow like all the Google web development things where they mention PWAs enough times to make your ears bleed, a progressive web app is basically just a website that you can install on your phone. You have to set up some certain things with the website and some configurations, but then it makes it so that you'll have a little button that says install to your home screen, and then you'll be able to install that, and you get the option for the website to provide certain offline experiences. So if you'll head over to the next slide for me, Nick, thank you. So with this project with Yash, the things that we were targeting were getting the PWA up and running so that people could install Open Library on the home screen, creating a bare bones offline experience. So in this case, it caches the homepage and some of the user's content, like the account reading log and other things to be accessible offline. We also redesigned some parts of the site, namely the header bar and the hamburger menu, to be more in touch with how modern websites and web apps feel. And we also published a beta version of a TWA, which is a trusted web activity, which lets you convert a PWA into a full-on app that can be in the Google Play Store. So we have a beta version of that available for internal testing that people can install and test it out. So this is a great project to work on, and Yash did a terrific job. And it really sets up a core flow that could allow us in the future to offer things like a more in-depth offline experience, like offline reading, and a bunch of other things like that, and options to redesign the feel of the site to make more sense on mobile. A lot of the improvements that Mark made to Open Library on the Reader app, like Mike mentioned, we're learning from those as well. So yeah, it was a pleasure to work with Yash on this project, and I think he did a terrific job of setting us up for future success in more PWA land.
Awesome. Drini or Yash, are there ways that anyone can help with next steps for the PWA at this time?
I'm not sure. I think next step is getting it out of beta into full production, and that's mostly on our site.
And then people can beta test and give us feedback.
Yeah, exactly. I think now we have it so there's only like a list of emails of people who can actually install it from the Play Store. The next phase would be just making it appear in the Google Play Store, but with like a little beta tag thing on it.
Awesome. One thing that I don't want to miss the opportunity to understate is how much time goes into mentoring. The Open Library doesn't treat mentor label as a throwaway phrase. Staff is meeting with members of the community every week, sometimes multiple times per week, multiple hours at a time, providing code reviews, providing tips, not only for how to program things up, but brainstorming ideas and project management. And Drini has been one of these key figures who has last year and this year just dedicated so much time to mentoring and has done such a phenomenal job. And the success that we see is every bit as much because Drini and Ray and others in the community have invested their sweat to make sure that our fellows are successful. So Yash, tremendous job. Thank you so much for your effort. This is going to mean that more people who are searching for books on the Google Play Store are able to find books within the Open Library and Internet Archive catalog. So thank you. And on that note, Drini, maybe you would like to share if you have demos, and so I can let you take over.
Yep. Although I will quickly take that compliment and fire it right back at you, because I think you do a terrific job, especially mentoring. I'm generally the person that people ping and then maybe get a response a week and a half later, but you're constantly on point and making sure nobody's blocked and getting things rolling and moving. So huge thank you for that, and just want to make sure that you're also getting recognized for that. Okay. Oh, it says disabled screen sharing. Oh, I think you might need to promote me to co-host. You're muted. Try now. It's working. Okay. Okay. So one of the projects I've worked on that I want to talk about is trusted book providers. So this is something that we've been planning on doing for most of the year, but it kind of mostly came together over the last week, and if I'm honest, over the last day. But we got it, we got it, and we frantically deployed it this morning, so you can use it on the production site, and there are definitely no bugs. Okay, so the trusted book providers is basically this idea that traditionally, OpenLibrary lets you borrow books from the Internet Archive. So there are over 3 million books that are available, actually way more than that, but 3 million books available through controlled digital lending from the Internet Archive, and many more that are just fully available public domain works from the Internet Archive. But there are also a lot of other wonderful organizations that put in a lot of effort to take these public domain works and do more with them and create works in different media, or just create works that the Internet Archive might not have at all. So trusted book providers is a way to expand the read button on OpenLibrary to integrate directly with these other providers. So I'm going to give a demo of that. But so the providers we were looking at were Project Gutenberg, which is the oldest, I learned recently, digital library, or the oldest, digital library, founded in 1971, which I was very surprised about. But yeah, and they have over 60,000 ebooks in their catalog. Those books are available, unlike the books on the internet, unlike most of the books on the Internet Archive, the books on Project Gutenberg are available as reflowable HTML and EPUB files. So I'm in the same camp as Mark. I do prefer the sort of physical books, but there are also loads of benefits to the reflowable text, some of which, like reading on a phone, provides a better experience, and also loads of accessibility improvements, like being able to switch the font to a dyslexic font or something like that, is only possible if you have the text in a reflowable format.
And if I may ask, what was the experience previously with Project Gutenberg through the OpenLibrary catalog?
Previously, so the Internet Archive backs up all of Project Gutenberg's works. So it did provide a link, but archive.org can't render the types of books that Project Gutenberg has. So it would display a not in library link in OpenLibrary, but then you could scroll to the bottom and you could click on the Internet Archive and then you go to Internet Archive, but it wouldn't work. Or it would sometimes display a in library button, a read button, but then you'd still go to archive and it wouldn't work. So it wasn't a great experience. And kind of ditto with LibreVox. So Internet Archive is actually the storage technology for LibreVox. That's where all their audio files are stored. But the links on OpenLibrary would take you to archive.org to the wrong spot, and it wouldn't work there. LibreVox provides human narrated audiobooks of all these public domain works, and they have over 15,000 books in their collection. Standard ebooks is dedicated towards very high quality modern EPUBs of these public domain works. So they have over, I forgot this one, I think it was like 500 or something like that books in their collection. But they're the highest quality. So they include things like table of contents in their EPUBs and things like that. So they're great for e-readers. OpenStax is a collection of open source textbooks developed, fully fresh content developed in the public domain, I believe. And then Wikisource is a Wikimedia project from the folks at Wikipedia that takes a lot of these scans and then does something similar to Gutenberg and standard ebooks. They have over 500,000 books in their English catalog alone, which is fantastic. So now I'm going to show how the experience works. So just as an example, so this is what Goody Two Shoes looks like in the Internet Archive. And here's what it looks like on Wikisource. So you have the full text You can do everything that you can do with full text. You can download it as a PDF and an EPUB and so on. And standard ebooks. So here's how they look on standard ebooks. So you can tell the sort of dedication to sort of quality modern EPUBs just by looking at the site, really. But here you can download in formats very specific to different devices because they've tailored the EPUBs to take advantage of each of the features of the different devices. So on OpenLibrary, the two links I've provided, so it now looks like this. So this book is available only on Project Gutenberg and LibreVox. Previously, an OpenLibrary user wouldn't be able to access this book. But now, if I click on the read button here, it'll take me to the Gutenberg site. And Gutenberg was a little slow today, I think. I'm not sure why. So wait for it. There we go. And from here, you can read the book directly in its HTML format. And when you go back to OpenLibrary, we wanted to make it clear that to a user who might be used to only seeing those Internet Archive books, we wanted to make sure that they knew what just happened so that they weren't confused about why they were being sent to another site and unclear what this other site was. So when you go back to OpenLibrary, we provided notification that tells the user what Project Gutenberg is and that it's a trusted book provider associated or that we're working with as the OpenLibrary. And the same thing for audiobooks. Now you can go straight here and start listening to the audiobook on LibreVox. So there are still loads of things we want to do to make this experience better, like proper search facets. So you could search for books that are specifically available in these collections. But for now, we have this little shim, this URL parameter that lets you filter. So here are all the published for LibreVox books with LibreVox selected as the provider. So you can just go straight into a LibreVox book from the search page. And same thing with Gutenberg. So we've currently implemented Project Gutenberg and LibreVox. Those are in production right now. Standard ebooks, OpenStax are going to be going out in the next little bit. And Wikisource is in the works, but that one's going to be a bit more complicated because it's got a lot of books. Yeah, so that's trusted book providers. Basically a way to work with this ecosystem of open access books and to help promote this symbiotic relationship and make sure that we all succeed sort of together and make sure we're driving traffic to our partners and that they get all the good stuff from that. Second. Okay, so jumping from that, one of the other things that I worked on that I spend most of my
time. Do you mind if I add one sentence there?
Please do.
The reason to me that this felt like and feels like such a major win is our goal for the year is to be the internet's book catalog. And we were certainly the Internet Archives catalog and had links to other services. But this is the first attempt at really formalizing the OpenLibrary book catalog to link to several trusted sources of high quality reputable material. And so I'm so excited by the work that Drini and others did to make this possible. Sorry, I would love to hear about the search.
Yeah, and I'll go through this pretty quickly. But yeah, so the other thing, if you've ever heard me on the community calls complain about something or talk about something, there's no real difference. It's usually about search and it's about Solr. So I thought it'd be useful to go through some of the things that happened this year, which I was looking back and I didn't even realize happened this year. But so this year in May, actually, I didn't realize it was this year, we went from Solr 3.6, which was released in 2012, to Solr 8.8, which was released in 2021. So that's fantastic. And one of the things that came out of that, we got a lot of extra features, extra parameters, and it's setting us up for success to do a lot of the more complicated, fancy things we want to do with search coming up. One of the metrics I was using to test search success is the average position of Wikipedia's top 30 most published books. So for example, one of them is, I think, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So if somebody searches for that, where does the book appear in the search results? So if our search is good, it should be the top book. So we want this number to be lower. So with tweaks and with that Solr update, we went from the average position of those top 30 most published books from 5.8 to 2.5. So that's having it. That's I don't know. I was happy with it. I don't know how to compare that to anyone else, but it's a positive direction. The other thing that improved a lot, which just happened because of that Solr upgrade, was the time it takes for a librarian or user edit on OpenLibrary to appear in search results dropped from 15 to 20 minutes to 1 minute, which is just a it's a completely different experience when making edits to things like author pages and seeing the results just like come up very quickly. We also did the first full subjects re-index since 2019, which almost doubled the number of subjects you can search for in OpenLibrary and increased it by 1.4 million subjects. That's largely in part to all the work that Meg's been doing with imports, because now we have a lot more books, but he'll talk about that in a bit. And we also exposed some niceties about being able to sort search results randomly. So if you're just browsing and you don't have a specific thing you're looking for, you can search the results randomly and get results back. Oops. And then upcoming in the next full Solr reindex, we'll have fewer misclassifications inside our library explorers. You'll be able to search for authors and ignore the diacritics. So this will be a huge boon for searching for non-English authors, and the ability to sort and filter by rating or reading log data, which it will provide a way of sorting, which will just make a lot of our carousels a lot nicer. Finally, some miscellaneous other updates. There are a few improvements to Library Explorer. So now because we're on the latest version of Solr and some other things, you can now sort the Library Explorer. So if you can actually see it in completely library order, in the same way that if you were in a physical library and looking at the shelves. We added an option to jump to a specific classification. You have the option to filter by language. So if you only were interested in French works. And then some other things unrelated to Library Explorer. We improved our internationalization workflow with the help of Jim Champ to provide automatic validation when a user contributes translations for the site. That's a huge bottleneck of the site, because bad or like a syntax error in the translation files can cause a user error when that page gets rendered. So now we've automated the tests and the checks for that flow, so translations can move faster. And a goal for the end of the year in terms of internationalization is to get OpenLibrary translated into 10 languages. We currently have about 4 that are relatively well developed and a few that are kind of hazier. But if you're interested in helping translate the OpenLibrary user interface to different language, please contact me. We want to step up that workflow and push through it a bit. Yeah, okay, that's it. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Drini. I'm one of the staff, full-time staff on OpenLibrary, working in software development and design.
Something else that Drini may not have mentioned is he recently, with the help of many people on the book reader team, launched Pinch to Zoom. So if you are on a mobile device and were struggling to press the plus and the minus magnifying glasses, you should now have a native Pinch to Zoom experience within the book reader, which is easily the highest impact and most requested feature that I can recall in recent times. So thank you, Drini. I do want to ask really quickly, is there anyone in the community who has not heard of the Library Explorer, either by show of hands, react on something, unmute, however you want to? Okay, so there are at least a few people who haven't. Drini, do you mind giving it the 15-second version of maybe you can just show the interface and then apply one of the filters that you were just talking about from this year?
Sure. So it's organizing OpenLibrary's collection in a way that you might be familiar with if you've ever been in a physical library, which I imagine you have. So it's taking Dewey Decimal or Library of Congress, if you want the details there. But you have all these books neatly classified and organized into different sections, and you can move around and just find something you find interesting. On top of that, unlike a physical library, you get the option of being able to filter, sort, and all the stuff that we're used to with a modern tool. So for example, right now I've got only modern works, 1985 or plus. I can filter this to only show public domain works, things published before 1924. And you can see everything looks older and you see some spam there, which needs to get fixed later, and stuff like that. Also, you can filter. So let me go back to modern and I can filter for juvenile works. And so this will be the children's collection, basically, again, in that same structure of that I had before. And some of the ones that I mentioned was like, so now I can filter by language. So if I'm only interested in German, there we go, lots of German works. I think I clicked too quickly and it caused a little issue there.
And also, if you would like to get to this experience on the homepage of OpenLibrary within the onboarding carousel that Sabrine helped work on, there's a button to go to the Library Explorer. So you can try it out and let us know what you think and if you have any suggestions. All right. The Library Explorer was so important to us because we were developing it right around the time that libraries all across the country had to shut their doors. And we were recognizing the ways in which OpenLibrary as a digital catalog may not offer all of the same affordances as people appreciate within walking around a physical library. So many props to Drini, who led that effort and has just built a wonderful experience that I think people really enjoy. Okay, let me jump back to slides here, play catch up. And next is going to be Bharat. I can share for you if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Bharat. I am from India. I work in a fintech startup full-time in India. I am a big believer of open data. In general, I believe that data should be accessible to people, and I also believe in the universal access of knowledge. That's how I ran into Internet Archive before as well. But when I was looking around for APIs to do some programming related tasks with book data, I ran into OpenLibrary. And that is when I started joining community calls and trying to understand what the vision of the project is. And then I fell in love with the vision of the project and where it's going. And I started contributing around, I started joining calls around April, and around May or June, I started contributing code-wise to OpenLibrary and OpenLibrary client. My main goal for OpenLibrary when I was coming into OpenLibrary was to make sure data in the OpenLibrary system was as good as possible. And one of the main ways we get there is by enabling librarians do what they do the best, like fix all the records and make things perfect. And sort of accelerate that effort. For that, we had to make scripts which work for them and allow them to do what they want to do. So internally, we use something called the OpenLibrary client, which talks to the server and fixes a lot of things. So that is where I started off my work. I had one project where I set up a code formatter for the project. That was my initial commit. And then later after that, we added support to bulk delete works. So if somebody like Lisa comes in and says, we have an author who has 1,000 works which needs to be deleted, instead of painfully deleting in batches, we can just hit one API and just delete it in one single shot. So that was what we added to OpenLibrary client. This happens more often than people think. We had situations where we deleted 215 authors which were wrongly named. And similarly, and these authors tend to have their own books, and these books tend to have their own editions. And all of that needs to be carefully cascaded and deleted, and otherwise there will be orphans left around. So all of that was taken care of from the OpenLibrary client. But it looked like whatever we did was slightly inefficient. So then I went back to the server and optimized it there so that instead of creating a lot of records behind the scenes, it just does it very cleanly, and it's much faster as well. And there were so Google Colabs, for people who don't know, is basically Python scripts. It's a script which will automate something we do manually. There have been instances where, for example, one thing I vividly remember is that Pokemon spelling was wrong for around 700 works. And there should be a way where we fix all of this stuff from the librarian's perspective, because this will be very tedious to do through hand. So we had scripts for stuff like that, which will help people rename works, delete works for that matter. We deleted around 800 works which were wrong, called dump. There were a lot of scripts which just make cleaning much more quicker and easier. One more thing which I did in the recent past was creating ratings and reading logs dumps. OpenLibrary does this fantastic thing where every month they generate their entire database dump for general people to download and use, read, and understand what the data is. Recently, we added ratings of what the ratings of the books were and also the rating logs. The last one which I was working on until very recently was the partner library. I think there'll be some more information in the next slide, but what it does is that it will allow other vendors, other companies to add around 2 lines of code, and then they will get to have buttons which will tell if that particular book is available in OpenLibrary and what is the status of that book. Can you jump to the other slide?
You're muted, Mick.
Yes, I can jump to the next slide. I want to really quickly show that if you scroll to the bottom of the OpenLibrary page and you click on the bulk data dumps, then you can access the public information behind the OpenLibrary catalog. And these ratings, which have been anonymized, and also the reading log, which has been anonymized, are both available because of Bharat's contributions. So thank you very much. And then on the next slide, I'm actually hoping that I'm gonna try to seek into.
Can I just say something quickly?
Yes,
about
absolutely.
what
Please
Bharat's done? Just to give some sense of how much of an impact some of these scripts have made. For example, we import a lot of data from Amazon, and Amazon sometimes has books that aren't really books. They're just like notebooks people are trying to make a quick buck off of. And these have been imported in the tens of thousands. And there's no way I was going to go through and delete those one by one. And there's no way I was going to ask someone else to go in and delete those one by one. So they were just hanging out for a long time. We got a lot of emails about that saying, hey, you have this stuff in search results, and we just couldn't really take them out until Bharat came along and wrote his script. So a big thank you there.
Yeah, I want to second that. Bharat has just done completely over the top, outstanding job. Technically, just so smart and such a pleasure to work with, and has done such impactful things. And I would like to. Do you mind if I help show off this little example?
Yeah.
So for those who've never been to bookshop.org, they are one of several vendors that are listed on the OpenLibrary catalog as options. And a lot of people speak highly of bookshop.org because they will donate to bookstores and indie bookstores. And they just have a very interesting model. And so we thought it would be cool if we could just write a little bit of code so that when we press enter, then magically in a second, the page starts to adjust, and anywhere where there's a book that's borrowable within OpenLibrary just gets a button injected. This isn't on their website, it's only on my local copy. But what we're trying to do is speak to partners around the world so that if they would like to add just a few lines of code to their website, then other book catalogs across the internet, such as mostrecommendedbooks.com, for instance, which is another website this works with, just will automatically have borrow buttons. And because of Dreamy's work, this would not only mean Internet Archive books, this would mean that we start to weave source material into the entire web of here's a book. Maybe there's a LibriVox copy book available. Maybe there's a Internet Archive book available, or maybe there's a standard ebooks available. So with just a few lines of code, this could potentially make source material much more discoverable, not only on the OpenLibrary.org catalog, but across the entire internet. And if that isn't a huge stride in terms of impact, I don't know what it is. So thank you, Bharat, and also Dreamy for helping work on this idea. I would love it if we can have a round of applause for everyone who has gone so far. All right. And then let's see. We have Jim, Nolan, and then myself to wrap up. So finishing stretch. So why don't I share my screen and then hand over to Jim. Sorry, Jeannie.
Sorry, or Barad, was there anything else you wanted to say to close off, or?
Oh yes, the what's next. Sorry, that's the screen. Here we go.
Yeah. So this was what we've been doing up until now. The idea is to make the pipeline smooth enough so that bulk data cleanups become faster, and data in general, like data stays updated. I also had the luck and opportunity to work with Mike on the import pipeline. I think he'll be covering that up next. That was a fantastic project. It was a fantastic experience. Next, we have a bunch of things which I want to work on. One of it is partner library, which we Mike just showcased. There will be more versions of that in the future, which we'll keep improving that. One more thing which I'm working on is the API layer of OpenLibrary. There is one UI layer of OpenLibrary which everybody gets to see, and behind the scenes there is one API layer which programmers and other companies can interact with. I'm working on the API layer so that the interaction with the external clients and OpenLibrary becomes much more smoother. Imports is something Mike will again talk about, but that is something which is more of a scale issue, and how many books can we import from, where do we import, and failure resistance. That is something I'm working on. And there is one very interesting thing, which is a very specific OpenLibrary problem, is that how do you merge two different records if they're the same, but two different people have given two different types of data. That has been done from the backend. That is mostly done. So most probably that will go live pretty soon. I just want to mention one thing, that OpenLibrary has been one of the best communities I've ever worked with. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with talented people here. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was great. Jim, would you like to take us away on improving librarian outcomes using big data?
So I'm Jim. I'm a Greek university student, and my passions are books and programming. So I'm lazy by nature. This will come later. We will use that later. And I'm in an open library training, or as I call it, lead. And I love the open source ideas. And I found OpenLibrary when searching for an open data source for my personal digital library. And I was pretty frustrated when data was not correct. So I started steps to make it better. So for OpenLibrary, I did the librarian stuff, of course, and fixing data manually. I helped upgrade software so that we can do better work than we do currently. And more on that later. I worked on pipelines to find and correct data in OpenLibrary in bulk. So I wrote some code in Python that can take the OpenLibrary data dumps that Meg mentioned before and convert them to more suitable formats for processing. For example, databases as SQLite and plain text stuff like JSON. And I was able to process the whole data of OpenLibrary to find some interesting patterns. For example, one particular work had 10,000 duplicates, and I was able to find that with a single line of code into the database. I managed to find lots of typos, for example, spaces that need not be there, and some authors and that do not exist or are placeholders. And one other thing that I didn't mention is help find some notebooks. So I submitted those to the library community to help fix those errors, and I did some fixing myself. I wrote a bot that reads OpenLibrary data and removes extra white space that is on the start and the end of the titles. And I also wrote some tools to help librarians do their work more efficiently. So for the future, I am planning on experimenting with several stuff regarding OpenLibrary. Pretty graphs so we can visualize the relationship between authors' works and editions. And I want to work more on cleaning up data. Things you can do to help me specifically is share technical knowledge, of course, and improve the data in any way that we can. And stay tuned. I write code whenever I can. I try to make everything public. For example, I'm active on GitHub, a community of developers. And I hope that OpenLibrary becomes the best data source, open data source, yeah, for books. I know it is a tall order, but I would like to be so. I would like it to be so. That's it for me.
Hey, Jim, way to go. Incredible. Yeah, Jim has helped us find lots of things in the catalog that may have, as Lisa said, come from a source like Amazon or sources like it that may have things that are book-like in their inventory, but may not be books as we might think about them, just like notebooks with unicorns on the cover. And Jim has helped us discover thousands and thousands of these mistakes in bulk, and we really, really appreciate it. Amazing work. Nolan, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Nolan Wyndham, and I'm going to be talking about the past year of progress with the Open Book Genome Project Sequencer, which is a literary fingerprint for every book. So just first to introduce myself, if you can stay on the first slide for now. I found OpenLibrary when looking for books while doing classes and studying in high school, and also just on my own. I found it and also already knew about the Internet Archive. I visited the archive after kind of actually years of trying to convince, trying to figure out like a way to get up there. And eventually I did, and I met Mech, and he added me to the OpenLibrary community Slack channel. I began monitoring the goings on of the community. I started attending weekly community calls to learn about how things work behind the scenes. And eventually Mech actually introduced me to this project, the Open Book Genome Project, and I was instantly captivated. I began learning about the project, its vision, its code architecture, and making contributions of my own and learning how it can, how I could push it forward. I was unfortunate enough to formalize my work as a Google Summer of Code fellowship, and I would highly recommend applying to become a fellow either through GSOC or through the archive's own fellowship program, because it was extremely rewarding for personal development, as well as the stuff that you can do to make open access and to push forward the mission of universal access to all knowledge. I had a fantastic experience with the project and the community, and we are looking for new contributors to continue developing this tool. So please, if anything in here seems interesting to you, you want to learn more, please feel free to reach out to either Mech or myself. Any level of experience is fantastic. I taught myself a lot about how this stuff works while I was working on the project, and I would be happy to pass on that knowledge. So we can move on to the next slide, where I'll give a brief overview of what that project actually is. So the sequencer is a tool that can analyze and extract information from the entire library of books available on the Internet Archive, then make it freely available to the public to use as they please. So the type of information that I'm talking about is, for example, word frequency information, so the most common words in books, or two-word pairs, URL extraction, identifier extraction, the reading, an estimation of the reading level of the book, as well as many other metrics that just are not really available anywhere else in a single place. So I have a little example in the slides here. So this is a book called Open Access. So if you go to the next animation, oh, I think you clicked on the Google Colab. If you go back to the presentation, and then just advance. Okay, cool. So here is a photo of the copyright page of that book. An example in this case might be there are actually many books that the archive has that tens of thousands of books that have been scanned but are not lendable because key information about the book is missing, such as specifically the published date, the title, the author. For whatever reason, that information is missing. But for many of these books, identifying information is available on the copyright page. So if you advance here, you can see that the sequencer is actually able to identify key features of copyright pages such as the copyright symbol or the word copyright, and find it at the beginning of the book, then identify and make a record. This is the page that the copyright, this is the page of the copyright page in the book, and then use a different module in the sequencer to then identify where the ISBN is in that page, extract that ISBN, verify it as a valid ISBN, and then go ahead and actually find the information, add that piece of metadata to the archive item and trigger a process which then allows all of the other metadata to be updated from our library partners and from our own catalogs of having that connection between the ISBN and the key information that is necessary to make it lendable. So through that process, we are able to, so you can go next here, slide. Yeah, so you can see in the background, that's kind of where in the Google Colab, which you can actually access by going to our GitHub page. And it's also available right here, where we provide a full example of how you can take any book in the archive and it will, in its own environment in the cloud, run through the process of importing and sequencing the book and extracting information. It explains every single step of that process. So you can experiment on your own, see some of the potential. As you can see, there are some of those words have been estimated. Obviously, the word "the" is very common, but some more interesting phenomenon and more interesting word patterns appear when you look around, like Marjorie Two Shoes, Goody Two Shoes. That's obviously because the book is Goody Two Shoes. So going back to our slides. So next slide here. The results from this, where we were able to add in excess of 12,000 eligible books to our lending program, which means that those are books that we could have been lending out, but we're not, because that missing information made it impossible. But the extractor, the Open Book Genome Project sequencer, was able to identify, extract, and then apply that information to the work, or to the edition rather, and make it lendable to patrons. Additionally, more than 50,000 URL references were found inside the books, which is fantastic because a lot of these URLs are of higher quality because they've been published in books by published authors to indicate that these are important URLs that we need to be saving in our history, for example, the Wayback Machine, and as well as computing estimated reading level for books, which has the potential to be used to in the future for people to be able to find books that are at least with English for now, to the level that they're comfortable with reading, or maybe sharing with their children, or creating collections for different reading groups. And if you move on to the next slide, the potentials here are massive with this project, which is why I'm making this call to action. For identifying important terms with name entity recognition, such as people, places, topics, and dates, so then people can learn more about what these things are in the book themselves, if we're able to use a tool to find when these things are mentioned, calculating reading level and pace, generating book summaries using tools like GPT-3, extracting citations, references, URLs, and identifiers to create a web of knowledge. So then when people are reading a book, they can then find other references and also just make that machine readable. So then tools can use that to understand a book more fully, and even comparing book similarity based on themes, as well as many other potential improvements that we need your help in order to continue. So if you go on to the next slide, if you're interested in contributing, please reach out. We've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot more to be done. I'm now a college student, which takes up the vast majority of my time. So I appreciate with making some of those last minute changes in this presentation. Thanks for helping me out there. So you can also browse some of the book genomes that have been created so far to see what information is publicly available. And please check out our website and our GitHub to see some of the code that exists. And even if it seems very intimidating or it doesn't make any sense, but you still want to learn more or want to understand more, please reach out to me. I was in the exact same position at the beginning, but with the help of Mech as my mentor and the incredible time and work that he put into this collaboration, I was able to get to a position where I was comfortable with development. And I'd be very happy to pass that on just for your own personal development, but also so to push this very important and potentially high impact project into the future. And we can only do that with your help. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for attending this. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thanks, Nolan. All right. I guess I'll wrap us up today, and I promise it'll be quite short, because I think one of the joys of my job is the majority of my work goes into supporting the community, and I think everyone has spoken really eloquently for themselves. So my name is Mech. I'm the resident bad joke teller at OpenLibrary, and as such, we'll talk about the imports of great import, which has to do with new book catalog records being imported into the OpenLibrary catalog. Whenever I have a meeting with Brewster, the thing that comes up is not wanting to have dead ends. And a dead end is an experience in life, an experience on a website, in any context, when you're walking around and you have a goal and there's just nothing for you and they don't tell you where to go next. And so one of the ways that OpenLibrary kind of embodies this issue is, and we've seen this earlier in this presentation, when OpenLibrary doesn't have the answer, we want to send you to another location that might. We want to be as helpful as we can, and it doesn't matter if we claim credit for it. Really, the credit experienced by us is that our patrons are able to discover the materials that they need. And so anytime that someone searches for a book and that book is not within OpenLibrary's catalog, it's almost like being on the Wayback Machine or being on the internet and seeing a 404 page not found here. I feel like we've let down our patrons. And so anytime I talk to Brewster, the number one thing he's asking is, how are we doing on imports? Do we have automatic imports? And the number of meetings that I've had with Brenton about imports have been perfectly motivating to figure out a solution to not having an automatic import system. And the solution, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was known, which was build an automatic import system. And so over the course of the last several years, actually, partly because of the incredible work and contributions by Charles Horn from the OpenLibrary community, who also is at the Internet Archive on the OpenLibraries team. Charles put a lot of infrastructure in place, and I was able to help wire it together so that the work that Ray has done with the New York Times bestsellers, the work that our library partners have been doing, that Charles has been connecting, that our Amazon APIs and also data from partners like Better World Books have a way to start as a data source and all travel through the same standardized automatic pipeline to enter in a database, which then imports into OpenLibrary. And this is a page we have every intention to make publicly accessible. It's just historically that it was not public. I don't think there was really a meaningful decision there. It's just where people decided to put it. But if this ever loads, this will kind of show us a running tally of how book records are making it into the Open Library system. And it's working pretty hard right now. So I might come back to it in just a second once it's loaded. But the end goal is that in just the last 2 months, if you see the spike here on the right side, we have imported more than 1.6 million book records. Those are the ones that have just been created. And we've attempted to import more than 4 million records. And some of them we already had, some of them matched, or some of them were updated, meaning we found records that had new useful data we could add. But on an average day, we're importing tens of thousands of new book catalog records, and it shows us what's pending and what has been completed. But I would like to move on beyond the import things that Charles and Bharat and I and others have been working on, and just talk very briefly about the community at a glance. Because at any given year, it's very easy to become detached and not understand exactly how much our community has been growing. This year, we added 17 new contributors to our community, which is a 50% growth over last year. We have approximately 50 people throughout the year have been donating their time to improving the library, either librarianship or communications, engineering, translations. And one might say, okay, these are just people coming along and they're making one contribution and leaving. But that isn't true, because 30 out of these 47 people have made 5 or more contributions. And you can see that last year, or even in 2016 compared to now, it's just a complete transformation. We just have a flat line of pretty much throughout the entire year, people were intensely contributing to Open Library, both from an engineering perspective, which is what we're seeing here is mostly engineering, and also the fact that we have 150 community librarians or librarians in training that Lisa talked about earlier. We just accomplished a lot together. 10 new special librarian collections or more, a complete accessibility revamp, internationalization, which has converted the Open Library website into more languages, 2 different mobile experiences, a progressive web app and also the Open Library Reader, a new onboarding experience, book notes, community reviews, new options for partnerships, integration of partner trusted providers directly into Open Library, a automatic import system, search results that come from a new version of Solr, podcasts, blog posts, and 200,000 books sequenced through the Open Genome Project. So that's been 2021 at a glance. We've gone from trying to remove bad experiences to building a strong community, growing libraries together, increasing our adoption and discovery by book lovers around the world. And then finally this year, doing our job to become the internet's book catalog and bringing other libraries and partners and services along with us in that journey. And if you've been excited by what you've heard and you would like to participate in the future direction of Open Library, we hope next Tuesday at the same exact time, you will join our community call for our planning meeting, where we will talk about how we can create as much new value for our patrons as possible with our efforts over the course of the year. And if you want to get involved, there's 4 really clear ways to do that. Be a patron and try Jim's new community reviews module. If you're a translator, help us make Open Library available in more languages and reach out to Drini. If you're an engineer, then talk to Jim about contributing to a storybook component. Or finally, join us during our next community call and take part in our roadmap planning. And thank you everyone on the Open Library team, contributors, patrons, for helping us have a great year and for accomplishing so much on your behalf. And if you've enjoyed this presentation, and have questions or would like to hang around, I invite anyone to go to these slides, which is actually, I can drop this slide directly in the chat. And if you click on this link, you'll be teleported to a virtual library using a different website called GatherTown. And GatherTown will allow you to walk around and commingle with anyone else in the community and have all of your questions answered. So let me drop that into chat now. And on that note, I'm going to stop the recordings, but not before I invite everyone to join in on one last very warm round of applause for everyone who made this possible, both their support and their efforts in serving our patrons. So thank you so much.